So thank you to Alzheimer Europe for inviting me to talk about a topic that's very dear to my heart. Thank you also to Interdem colleagues for, over the years, being able to debate this issue with them and tease out what we think is important. So I hope to enthuse you all and that you all leave this room thinking this is where we have to go. We have to do some more work here. Outcome measures being those important for both research as well as for care in practice. Okay. Why is it important? Policy focus. We've got more money flowing into both cure and care research. Not enough, but it's more than it used to be. We need to test whether what we're developing works. But, you know, what should we measure and how should we measure it? These are quite difficult questions and ones I want to think about. I'm going to whiz over some of the slides fairly quickly because I haven't got very long. So apologies for that. But some of the issues I've got in this presentation have been reiterated already at this event. Okay. So I'm going to talk about what I think are meaningful outcomes. But there's an issue here. Is it the same agenda for disease-modifying research, pharma research, as it is for psychosocial care research? Is it the same? I'm indebted to presenters here from the Roadmap Consortium. I hope somebody is here, because they've really helped me to really zone in today and think that we perhaps should pull together on this agenda. Okay. It's really different now to when I started out in dementia research, and that's 30 years ago. So we've got the voice of people with dementia now being increasingly heard. Self-management is an established idea in the earlier stages of the condition. There's a change of focus away from what people can't to what people can, and the importance of living well at all stages of the condition. I think you'll agree, everybody, that these are the priorities. These are the changes, and this is what we're working with. Just a very quick kind of plug for this piece of policy from the UK, from England actually, Public Health England, which really emphasises this move away from thinking about what people can't do to the importance of supporting people to live well throughout the whole dementia journey. This is a really important piece of policy for us in England. Okay, so we've got this welcome emphasis, I think. Now this slide's actually not very good, so I'm going to try and just briefly explain it. This is what I think the journey is with psychosocial interventions. And it's not very good because I realise in the third bit it says treatments available. What I meant there is actually more pharma treatments. So we know there are treatments available to actually ameliorate the kind of symptoms of the condition for a certain length of time. And that's what I meant there, because I think that has made a big change in understanding what can be achieved overall. Here, I think we're at this end, and I'm sorry I'm not using this pointer, it's a bit difficult. We're thinking about interventions now, programs for people with dementia who don't necessarily have a care partner. Okay. Now then, it's all very well, but work that I've done with Fiona Kehoe from Galway and others at Sheffield University tells me that there's a whole range of things available out there already. And it's very difficult to manage this, to actually make any sense of what's already available, to be honest. So we've got all these different things. One of the reasons why it's difficult is because things are called different things. The same thing has different titles too. So this is from a search of the literature. However, we're still in this place, services are still in that place, certainly in the UK, in England, of not knowing what to provide for people after dementia diagnosis, what's beneficial, who should provide it, how long, and what can we afford, all those things. There's loads of what we call new generation of studies into care interventions. And these are some of them. I think it's a bit unfortunate that we use these acronyms. I think it's difficult, but we haven't got time perhaps to go into all these studies are. Different variations, different ideas, looking at how we can help people to maintain independence, well-being, self-management, great cognitive rehabilitation, praised is looking more at physical activity, and there's more still. Dementia and physical activity, Tai Chi, Attila assistive technology and telecare. Now, the issue that we found with our literature review, all of these studies use different outcomes. I think, I might be speaking out of turn, I think Fiona's identified about 54 different outcomes in all these studies. So how do we know what we're measuring and what we should be measuring? I'm going to return to this later. This is my particular study, and what I'm going to share with you is my learning out of this study. So we return to that later. This is a particular programme for people post-diagnosis, which is informed by occupational therapy and self-management. Okay. So we need to think about these new programmes, interventions we'll sometimes call them, but there's a few issues here. The emphasis now, as you've seen from England, is upon people living well, but I don't think we know how to measure living well. I don't think we've got a measure of living well. I haven't got one. I've got a measure of quality of life. Is that the same thing? I'm not sure. Participation in activities of daily living used to be a core outcome, and indeed for journeying through dementia, I was told I had to use that as the primary outcome by the funders. I said I wasn't going to. But, you know, does it matter if somebody can't do everything, every stage of dressing? If somebody's going to help, does it matter? What is it? It's not the same as living well. More issues with how we measure the effectiveness of what we're doing. So, many established measures, though that tend to be used time and again, involve asking somebody else what that person with dementia can and cannot do, or might and might not be thinking. Is that right? Many measures are complicated. They're not dementia-friendly, they're complicated and wordy. Now, the bottom issue to me is the most salient, the most important. Is it correct for us to ask people with dementia about issues using a questionnaire format and asking people to remember what happened last week, last month? Is that correct? Is that reasonable? Is that what we should be doing? I don't know what you think to that. Okay. So it's a whole project in itself, dementia outcome measures, to me. And as I've said before, into them being very instrumental, and we work with JPND in taking forward the ideas. So these are some of the issues. What exists for clinical practice and for research, how can we measure well-being, and what do people, more importantly, what do people with dementia think we should be measuring and how? Okay. We, as part of the project funded by JPND, we did talk with people with dementia, and there is a publication about this, and these are the things that people with dementia told us were important. A full diary is important, need for things that aren't dementia, importance of enjoyment and leisure. And they said research should measure what's important to people. And people also told us how they cheated with the existing measures sometimes to get through them. Okay? But what should we do when we've got what we've got? We've got what we've got, okay? So we're thinking about what's the best of what we've got, not very satisfactory, but also, if we're going to measure more positive outcomes, can we adapt existing measures that have been used with other populations? Okay. Also, other ideas. Can we use new technology? I understand from the roadmap people this is a long way off, and I agree, but there's something there, isn't there? We've all got a phone. Can we use technology to harvest data? What other big data can we use? However, this will lead to something very different to what we've got now. Okay. Now, thinking about my dilemmas, going back to this project, and what are the issues here with this large randomised controlled trial? Okay. So this is a programme, an intervention of 12 weeks. It's a group intervention, so people meet together in a community venue over 12 successive weeks, and also have 4 one-to-ones with one of the facilitators, both facilitators being trained. These are the topics, but it's a menu-driven intervention programme, so people in the group with the facilitators choose. They're not told. Okay. So we've done quite a lot of underpinning work, and all that was well and good. It went very well. Now we've got this very large study, 48 months, it finishes at the end of next year, 12 sites, we've got a lot of people involved, as you can see. Okay. Now, the challenge is with a randomised controlled trial that everything's fixed after a certain point when you begin this study, and you're told to choose the outcome measures. But we have to use what we've got, and I'm very challenged by this. I managed, as I said, to persuade the funders to allow me to use a quality of life measure rather than an ADL measure, and that was quite a big issue. Some of these measures that we've selected aren't validated, haven't been used before with people with dementia, or may have been used in other studies, but still haven't been what we call validated, so the properties, we know that they're reliable, valid, etc. The self-management in older people, this is a measure from the Netherlands, so I don't think that's been used with people with dementia before. Flourishing scale has, I think, GSE, and so on. So it's about trying to find the measures that best reflect what you think the product of that intervention, that programme will be. But we're very compromised because, as you can see, some of these measures just haven't been tested with people with dementia before. And they are all questionnaire format, delivered in an interview, but nevertheless. Okay, and there's more problems here. So we've got to have a screening tool to make sure that we've got people with the right diagnosis or the right kind of cognitive abilities to take part. Mini-mental state, now we know this isn't very good, but everybody uses it, oh dear. So we're using it because everybody uses it. We've got to be able to detect people's distress and refer them, if necessary, onto services, hence measures of anxiety and depression. The Health and Social Care Resource Use Questionnaire, people familiar with this? That is really difficult for people with dementia to use because it asks people to remember what services they've accessed over the last kind of so long, months, whatever. Difficult. Can you do that? I can't do that. Really, it's hard. Yeah. And it demanded another measure of quality of life as well, to do the health economics. Okay. So what are the implications here are significant. So I've got a study that's been funded £2 million or thereabouts from UK government, if you like. But it's not just a matter of whether it's beneficial or not for people. There's all these factors that tell me that it could not be beneficial because we haven't measured the right things. So we didn't measure the right things. But also people couldn't remember what had happened. They couldn't recall. And obviously, people may not benefit. That's fair enough, isn't it? So that tips against people experiencing benefit and us getting a positive result from this study. So you can see, and I would argue that for many of these studies, these big studies like this, it is the same picture. Okay. So what we've got here is a very dynamic, exciting, demanding agenda. One we've got to tackle. It's really difficult, I think. Okay. And I think we need to work in partnership with people with dementia, in particular to make sure we develop new measures that people want to use. It measures what people want to say in the right way. So it's a lot. Okay. So I rest my case. Plenty to think about over the coffee break. Thank you.